if it's going to be community art, it means it has to be done by the community. It can't just be an artist living in the community making art and calling it community art. So that was one thing that we agreed on immediately. After the Hands project, I mean, there was a lot more demand for different things to happen. People were coming to Lori for, can you help us with this sort of thing? We just started just fantasizing more than anything. Oh, what if we had this? What if we had that? Wouldn't it be great if we could do this or that in the community? And I think that's where the spark was.
We became very involved with the Ontario Arts Council at that point. They actually hired me for a year to go around the province and educate other people on community arts. So we started developing a profile, not just provincially, it started to go nationally at that point as well. So we applied for and got, and we were the only organization in Canada that got another 3 years of funding from the Bronfman Foundation. And that's why we actually are as solid as we are. This all started in 1996. In 1999, we became incorporated, officially incorporated as an organization. And together we developed what was going to be Midsummer's Community Arts.
I remember our first board meeting, and we were so giggly and didn't know how to act like board members at the time.
Dans le fond, elle cherchait pour quelqu'un pour travailler avec Midsummer's pour la comptabilité, tout ça. Puis c'est là que Daniel m'a référé à Laurie. Ouais, puis c'était le fun parce que, tu sais, avec qui d'autre tu veux travailler qu'avec du monde comme ça, tu sais, artistique. Puis, tu sais, donc c'était un plaisir.
Youth programming has always been very important with Myths and Mirrors. Like when we first started, we had a group called the Bee Girls that was a group of young adolescent girls that were, troubled.
She phoned me and asked me if I would be interested in working with a group of girls that were at risk, right? She was surprised by how many adults wanted to volunteer to be with part of this group. So we were a core group of 4 women. And the ratio was, I think we might have had 12 girls at the top end. And we ran this program for 3 years. And it was once a week, and we met with the girls, and we just did things that the girls wanted to do. We made masks, and we taught them how to stilt. We had the stilting happening at the time, so they learned how to stilt, and they made a play about themselves, and they wrote it, and they performed it, and they did it on stilts at, I guess it was at O'Connor Park that they did that, and that was quite successful. And we started to do a little retreat with them, and we'd go to Manitoulin Island.
They had the Better Be Girls, working with young girls, 14, 15, 16 years of age, giving them tools to, express themselves so they could, stand up for themselves and gain self-confidence and self-awareness. And these girls created giant puppets. And for 3 years, I think, or 4 years, they were in the Santa Claus parade. And they were very close, these girls. They became close, and, they could lean on each other and trust each other. And, that's something that not a lot of people can, encourage, can nurture for young girls. They were just really cool girls. Like Laurie really nurtured a cool group of kids.
The most sustained engagement I had with Laurie, outside connecting with her every once in a while with Myths and Mirrors projects, because I was never centrally involved with Myths and Mirrors, was around the Justice with Dignity Committee after the death of Kimberly Rogers. Laurie wasn't initially involved in that. It was Jennifer Keck, myself, and Christine Schmidt who organized the first major community assembly. But coming out of that was the Justice with Dignity campaign, which I was not able to stay fully involved in, but I do know that almost from the beginning that Laurie was the person who sustained it, who kept it alive and going for many years, and I really appreciated the work that she did in terms of both remembering Kimberly Rogers and making in some ways it clear that her death occurred in a social context, that it had to have meaning and it had to have results.
As the director of the Social Planning Council, I was invited to the Justice with Dignity Committee, and we were working first of all on responding to her as a woman in trouble in our community and what we had to do. And then once she died, working with people on making sure that our voice was heard at the inquest and that whole process. And so Laurie is and was in that process this quiet, committed force that knew what was right and knew what had to happen, and didn't have to bang on the table or be loud or aggressive, but just in her very clear, decisive way move forward with moving that issue along. And I was always deeply impressed with her thinking process and with her commitment and her commitment to what was right. That she knew what had happened here was wrong, and that we had to have voice around that, and she was committed to making that happen.
I got involved with the poverty game, and I started doing facilitation, and I loved it. And I was also interested in working around poverty issues, which of course everybody knows that Laurie is involved with heavily. And she attracts people because she listens. And so I started to listen to people, and I felt that their stories needed to be told. And so through the poverty game and the facilitation and facilitating their learning, we got people out in the community to share their stories. And the poverty game is still going on strong, and we are educating people one game at a time.
Did the poverty game for a number of years with Viv. I had a wonderful time doing that. It was always a great experience to be able to walk into these different agencies and have people get some sense of perception on what people live on and how depressing that can be. The poverty game is a Monopoly type game, board game, that you get to play in order to understand the nature of living on a very modest income.
Over the years, have kind of watched each other grow in the two places, me here at the Social Planning Council and her in the work at Myths and Mirrors, and collaborated on a few things. And most recently, she was a guest speaker at our breakfast on poverty reduction. And coming from a Healthy Communities perspective, you talk about the economic, the environmental, and the social perspective on things, and that those have to be interconnected. And we've struggled around, so what's the environmental connection around poverty? And Laurie came to the breakfast that we had, and in like, I think she had a 3.5 or 5 minute speech or something. It wasn't long, but she so nailed that particular piece. So again, it was that picture of her as this, clear, quiet, subtle, but direct person who could be the change you want to see in the world, right?
The people that were involved at the time were very vibrant and excited. And we'd started up the Windwalkers at that time. Well, we had brought in stilting and did workshops with stilting.
We got to know each other well over the course of time. While building this stilting troupe, she did a number of different workshops for us around masking, around poverty, around a lot of different issues, so that we could grow together as a group and decide what we wanted to do and how we wanted to utilize this skill.
The first mural was the Respect mural, and it was incredible. It was amazing. It was technical experience and leadership experience, and being able to be visible, having to talk to adults, convincing adults about the validity of murals, and just taking on all of those challenges together and being able to feel their own empowerment. I think it was just an incredibly good experience.
I got involved in youth space and respect mural, where there aren't enough spaces for youth to hang out in Sudbury. And the mural that we created was sort of based on the idea of reclaiming some of that space and making it visible that youth deserve and demand respect. The whole project, the Youth Space and Respect mural and the Revive Festival, came out of consultations with youth. I was 16 when the Space Youth and Respect mural was put together to organize a press conference and to speak to media those were incredibly valuable experiences, right? Like that's a super empowering thing for a 16-year-old to run around doing.